Well, my friends, we have another failed future megacity. Again. Honestly, it feels weird that the sheer amount of stories that I could talk about that is that exact same scenario is simply astounding. But really, it didn't have to be that way, and it's crazy because the start of this sounds like a feel-good story suitable for a movie script. Headline, local boy makes it as a musician, gains worldwide fame, becoming wildly rich, and represents his country proudly. Not only does he want to give back to his community, but he wants to build something big, something the likes of which has never been seen before in the world. Will he succeed, or will he take advantage of the trust of those who supported him when no one knew his name? It really does sound like something you would see on the back of a DVD box, except in this instance, it's not a movie storyline, it's actually happening. Or has happened, I guess you could say. So sit back, my friends, and relax, and let me tell you the story of Senegal's favorite son and how his big dreams would disintegrate into more empty promises in a continent that is sick of these sorts of things happening, because, oh dear God, are they way too frequent. Yeah, that's right, we're talking about the plans for Akon City, and why it will always remain just a dream made in 3D concept art. But first, we're gonna have to go back in time and explain some context in order to build this story in the first place. But hey, you know what, my friends? If you want to see some real action, you should check out today's sponsor, War Thunder. Oh my God, that was a hell of a segue. There are perhaps very few things that are as fitting to advertise on this channel as War Thunder, because my friends, War Thunder is easily the most comprehensive vehicle combat game that has ever been made, and is available now for free on PC, consoles, and mobile devices. In this, again, free game, which we play regularly on my Discord, you can take command over 2,500 tanks, planes, helicopters, and ships of 10 major nations, ranging from biplanes and armored cars of the 1920s, all the way to fighter jets and main battle tanks of today. Whether or not you want to go against the AI, or if you want to go against over 70 million players as part of the community in intense battles, that is honestly your choice. I mean, if we want to talk realism here, what is awesome about War Thunder is that it doesn't use hit points or anything like that. The vehicles are modeled down to their intricate details, the engine, the crew, armament, every single thing. And if one of those parts gets damaged or destroyed, that actually affects your vehicle, and you can see that happen. Again, this is actually a game that is played pretty regularly in my Discord. So if you want to join and have some fun, by all means, go and click the links down in my description to download the game on PC, PlayStation, Xbox, or mobile, and get access to a massive bonus pack that is available for any new players as well as players that have not played for the last 6 months across PC and consoles. The pack itself includes multiple premium vehicles as well as an exclusive vehicle decorator, the Eagle of Valor. Along with this, you get 100,000 silver lions and 7 days of premium account. Remember though, this bonus pack is only available for a limited time, so by all means go down and click the link in my description. Now from the beginning here, my friends, Akon's name is not simply Akon. He has a much longer name, which I probably am going to fail to pronounce, but I have pulled up specific the pronunciation of this here in order to try and say it right, so please bear with me, my friends from Senegal. Aliuna Damala Buga Tim Puru Naka Lululu Badara Akon Cham. Did I do it? I think I did it. Please Google. Please have not failed me now. Either way, this individual, more commonly known as Akon, is a Senegalese singer who came to fame by initially performing as part of Refugee Camp, part of the extended musical family of the Fugees. As early as 1996, Akon was involved in the music scene and made some powerful connections in the hip-hop and R&B industry, which led to his debut solo album, Trouble, being released in 2004. He scored a top 10 hit with the single Locked Up, and he would build on this success with his second album, Convicted, released in late 2006. This album went multi-platinum and saw Akon rise into stardom with massive hits like Smack That, I Wanna Love You, Don't Matter, and the album also saw him collaborating with some of rap and hip-hop's biggest names like Eminem and Snoop Dogg and more. You need to understand, the success of his second album catapulted Akon into megastardom. He was already known for working with anyone and everyone he could from around the world, but this level of fame caused him to now appear on the albums of some of the world's biggest artists, including Gwen Stefani, Pitbull, Whitney Houston, Michael Jackson, and more. And this arguably would be the height of Akon's career as a performing artist, but the man secured enough royalties in this one to ensure that his grandchildren will be wealthy. Being from Africa, Akon grew up in a part of Senegal that wasn't just prone to blackouts, they never had electricity in the first place. So when he became stupidly rich, he really wanted to give back to his home continent, and especially his home neighborhood. Together with a childhood friend of his, he would go to form a project that would provide solar-powered electricity to over 14 African nations and employ over 5,000 people. That company has reached over 1 million households provided with electricity since its development in 2015. They also installed more than 15,000 streetlights, and the reason it's important to mention this is that it proves a few things. First, it proved that Akon was charitable and serious about giving back to his former community. Secondly, it showed that he wasn't just making a get-rich-quick scheme to take advantage of already disenfranchised Africans. And additionally, it showed that his projects could reach completion. In a world where investors and real estate developers have exploited the living hell out of Africa and its resources, regardless of sources, and I know that a lot of people are going to bring up stuff with the West, but you see what's pretty much happening all over in the case of Chinese investments, and you'll see this is a common story. And so knowing that someone was still giving back to help the common man and their old community was pretty refreshing, honestly. But he wasn't done here yet, and things were going to get big. Because the year 2018 rolled around, and Akon would go and unveil his idea for a new cryptocurrency called, and I swear to God, I'm not kidding you, I'm not bullshitting, Akoin. Which, I mean, I get it, Akon, Akoin, but for anyone who is ever done anything with cryptocurrency, having it be a con, in and of itself would be very funny for it to be a scam. I'm just saying. For those of you who may remember, in the late 2010s, everyone and their mother was bringing out a new cryptocurrency with, of course, varying degrees of success and failure between them. The majority of these ended up being scams where a small group of early investors would multiply their money when the currency came out, only to dump most of their shares of the currency before it loses nearly all of its value. People hadn't really gotten used to this kind of scamming by this point in time, and Akon had a good reputation up to this point as well, so many people didn't really worry. That same year, Akon would reveal his new plans for a new futuristic supercity. This was someone who'd proven that he could have both investors and employees lining up to work with him. If done right, this project could change Senegal forever. But there is one word in that last sentence that is crucially important. Could. This is a key part of literally any potential project or especially future mega project. What was it in this case for him? Inspired by the movie Black Panther, Akon probably saw the film and thought to himself, hey, I want to make my own Wakanda, and I'll put it in Senegal. As for why he didn't go and name the city Akanda after, like Akoin and then himself is beyond us here at this channel, but he did choose Akon City, which arguably sounds even more egotistical, if that's possible. Unlike his solar project, which had gone relatively smoothly, there were problems with the Akon City project from the very beginning. The project was intended to be a mixed-use development smart city powered by solar energy, and initially it was going to consist of 2 stages of development. The first phase would include the construction of roads, a hospital campus, shopping mall, residential housing, hotels, a police station, a school, a waste treatment plant, and a photovoltaic solar power plant. In October of 2022, Akon would state that phase 1 was scheduled to be complete by 2026, so they were making progress. Akoin was going to be the central currency that was used in the city, as opposed to the CFA franc, which Senegal uses normally. And concerningly enough, this statement in a 2022 interview would be the last time Akon ever was heard publicly mentioning Akon City, for 3 years. But nobody knew that just yet. And so how big was this project, you may wonder? Well, estimated to cost $6 billion, the city was to be built over 800 acres of land near the coastal village of Mondine, about 100 kilometers from Dakar. And you need to understand here right now, $6 billion, the entire GDP of Senegal in 2024 was around $32 billion. Meaning this one project was estimated to almost be 20%, just under 20% of the entire GDP of the country. As you can imagine, this was a lot to promise, so if the project got even halfway completed, it's likely that most people would have seen it as a success. But that doesn't even begin to describe just how much this project refused to get off the ground. With only the loosest of plans, the project continued to suffer because nobody was really doing the important work of finding local entrepreneurs to join the project. The main focus of conversation was on Akoin, which should have caused more alarm than it did, really. But poor planning wasn't the only problem the project would encounter. Adding on to the list of terrible financial decisions he was making that would surely cause a major cardiac event for his accountants, Akon would raise funds for the project by selling tokens of appreciation, TOA, in a campaign that ended in October of 2019, each being $1 that was donated that would be converted to up to 4 TOA, which would later convert to Akoin. 2 years after the TOA campaign would conclude, an administrator offered cash refunds for TOA. a year after that offer was made, no refunds have been issued. Not $1. Ultimately, the decision to derive most of the money for the project from the purchase and use of Akoin before they'd even built a single building proved to be a horrendous choice. Now, as you can assume, the Akoin cryptocurrency has struggled to repay its investors over the years, with Akon himself conceding, quote, "It wasn't being managed properly. I take full responsibility for that," end quote. Which is a kind of nice way to put it, I guess, but in other words, it's worthless, and has been ever since just after it came out. By this point, Akoin is not being actively traded anywhere, and its value is rocking the minds of crypto bros everywhere, as it has a current value of $0.002298 per Akoin. Yes, each Akoin is worth over just 1/5 of a single penny. So, yeah, his currency is F-tier garbage, but wait, Akon's problems were about to get significantly worse. Because it was at this point that a $4 million lawsuit was brought against Akon by his former business partner, which brought the project to a screeching halt while they sorted things out legally. Then, Akon said that the COVID-19 pandemic would cause delays, which, admittedly, among all kinds of things that we could be talking about, that's at least understandable. But the true nail in the coffin for this project was when the Senegalese government stepped in demanding answers. SAPCO, the entity that purchased the land for the city, failed to pay hundreds of individuals who sold their land nearly a decade before. And the really wild thing, this isn't even the first failed megacity project attempted by Akon. Yeah, the difficulties in Senegal have actually been mirrored in Uganda, where authorities allocated 645 acres of land to Akon in 2021 for a similar smart city initiative. The project has also stalled due to local opposition and land right disputes. Approximately 10,000 residents are said to live on the Ugandan land that is earmarked for the development, and many have refused to vacate, citing lack of consultation and compensation. They are straight up not being paid for the land that they sold. And because not a single building has gone up in this project, it's actually even less developed than Akon City. This, of course, leads us to the obvious question by now. Okay, well, what has actually happened? What is the state of Akon City today? Well, the progress, as you can imagine, has not been good. That's for sure. In a supremely embarrassing state of events, the Akon City project today is literally just a single building, referred to as a visitor center, that has no walls, no windows, no doors, no plumbing, or electricity. Really, it's wild, my friends. The collapse of the Akon City vision in Senegal serves as a cautionary tale about celebrity-led megaprojects that promise transformational change without the necessary groundwork or stakeholder engagement. Senegalese officials say that they're planning to instead replace the Akon City plan with a more realistic and community-focused development, though they were unable to elaborate further on what exactly that is going to be. It really seems that the Senegalese government is kind of too busy trying to turn around their country's problems to worry too much about an optional recreational business development. And since we're here talking about Senegal anyways, we might as well update you guys on what was happening there for the greatest success story for democracy in modern African politics since, well, a while. As a 20-second refresher, for those of you who hadn't seen the previous video that I did on Senegal a while back, the last time we spoke about the country, we mentioned how they'd survived an attempt by outgoing term-limited president Macky Sall to potentially attempt to retain executive power through the breaking of national law by way of a fraudulent election. This developed into Sall giving up on a third-term idea, but instead endorsing his primary protege, and sensing that their biggest challenge would be the grassroots activism and populist support behind Ousmane Sonko and his right-hand man, Faye, the Sall administration did everything in its power to derail the election of Sonko. Then Faye stepped up while Sonko was imprisoned over some fake charges, and he was then going to run for president. Eventually, both men were imprisoned with less than a month till the election, and after some serious tension, the administration released Faye, and he was able to run for election in which he won easily. His first order as president, the release of Ousmane Sonko, and his promotion to being the latest prime minister of Senegal. So how are they doing so far? Well, under the leadership of President Bassirou Diomaye Faye and Prime Minister Ousmane Sonko, Senegal has made some serious moves to improve its overall situation, which has been pretty rough. Public health improvements in Senegal have been better. In fact, this year, Senegal was able to announce that it had joined the list of countries that have completely eradicated the blinding disease known as trachoma from within their borders. And they've been making serious efforts to root out the past corruption as well, which has been a frequent problem. This effort proved so successful that on August 1st, 2025, Prime Minister Sonko would unveil Senegal's new 4-year plan for economic recovery. And if you'll remember from our last video, Senegal had just started producing oil and gas this past year, and this boost in profits, plus the discovery of old loopholes that past administrators had used to enrich themselves, proved to free up a massive amount of money for the country that, unlike a lot of African countries, has never seen a coup. And in this case, money that would have otherwise been embezzled is now actually going, it seems, mostly where it's supposed to. As Sonko would say during a presentation in the capital Dakar, quote, "We have identified more than 4.6 trillion CFA francs, or $8.16 billion, in available resources between 2025 and 2028 without increasing the state's debt," which is huge. The plan to cut public spending and boost revenues aims to help narrow the budget deficit to 3% of GDP by 2027, from 12%, which is what it was in 2024, which is largely unsustainable. Its measures include merging and downsizing state institutions, which the government estimates could save around 50 billion CFA francs, and scrapping tax exemptions in certain sectors, especially in the larger untaxed digital economy. He cited online gaming and mobile money as examples. The tax on tobacco has been increased from 70% up to 100%, and this extra tax income will contribute to the economic plan as well. Also, as part of his efforts to promote tourism, the government plans to introduce visa fees, which could generate up to 60 billion CFA francs for the economy. Along with this, Sonko said that the government expects to raise 884 billion CFA francs from the renegotiation of contracts, particularly in the oil and mining sectors, and an additional 200 billion CFA francs from the renewal of telecom licenses. To attract investment, the government will ease access to land titles and raise the age limit for imported vehicles, which is a big demand from Senegal's largely young population, a quarter of whom are younger than 25 years of age. Besides this, another problem the country had encountered in the past was that it had been banned from the International Monetary Fund, whose whole purpose is to help countries get out of debt and to develop themselves. But if your economy is truly screwed, like Senegal's used to be, then the IMF will simply ban you, as lending your country money would be an epically poor financial decision, as it will not be able to make the investment back, and more importantly, that money is likely to be stolen by corrupt officials. This new 4-year plan is almost guaranteed to be an effort to get back into the IMF's good graces so that Senegal can make the economic recovery the current administration needs in order to provide for its people. So, what does that plan entail? Well, the 2025 to 2029 country strategic plan is designed around 4 interconnected outcomes. Outcome 1, crisis-affected populations in the targeted areas meet the urgent food and nutrition needs before, during, and after shocks. Outcome 2, populations at risk of malnutrition and school-aged children in targeted areas have improved nutrition status, contributing to strengthened human capital by 2029, which a healthier population means a better workforce. Outcome 3, communities, individuals, and food system actors in targeted areas vulnerable to shocks and stressors benefit from ecosystem restoration, resilient livelihoods, improved diets, and more sustainable food systems by 2029, reducing foreign dependency. Outcome 4, national systems and institutions have strengthened capacity to integrate food security, nutrition, and resilience in national policies and achieve zero hunger, reduce climate vulnerability, and further develop Senegal human capital by 2029. Yes, pretty much everything that I've listed here at this point is a lot of jargon that is typically thrown out by governments, but it is a hope. It is a hope of something more positive. And as you can see, the government of Senegal, which previously had been deaf to the cries of its own people under the leadership of Macky Sall, is listening to the concerns of the public. Malnutrition and food insecurity has been a massive problem under the previous, very corrupt administrations, and it has been a consistent effort of the new government to stamp out all of these issues. It doesn't mean that everything is going to be fixed. It doesn't mean that corruption is going to go away, but efforts have been undertaken to fix it. Throughout the next 4 years, the World Food Program will be monitoring and coordinating with the Senegalese government to carry out this plan, and that kind of bodes well for the people of Senegal, as it appears that there will be some accountability and oversight involved throughout, not just left to similar officials to what it is that they had before, where we already saw the problems that would arise from that. Along with this, the Senegal Program for Transparency in Public Financial Management and Fiscal Consolidation, which, oh dear God, that is a name, also called Senfintrack, is a 2025 to 2029 reform program in Senegal aimed at improving public debt sustainability, strengthening public financial management, and increasing domestic resource mobilization. The World Bank, through the International Development Association, or IDA, had approved $115 million in concessional financing to support the implementation of the CENFINTRAC program. This program would include tax reforms and custom changes like the visa fees to help support the aims of the government. The program would also be designed to align with Senegal's new long-term development strategy called Vision 2050, which is a way better time frame to actually look at this than what we've seen of like Vision 2030 with Saudi Arabia, which I'm going to be explaining the failure of that here in a future video because, oh dear God, that has not worked out well. And so this is where we see the greatest promise for the future of Senegal and its people. Sonko and Faye are smart enough to know that they may only be in office for so long, but if they can set the people on a path that is positive and built on itself, then they can plant the trees under which their grandchildren will be able to find shade. Under the plan, the government forecasts economic growth between 6.5 and 7% from 2025 to 2029, which is massive if they can maintain the deficit spending under 3%, because at that point, GDP growth will outperform. It plans to reduce central government debt from 83.7% of GDP in 2023 to 70% by 2029. The government is also targeting the budget deficit and trying to slash it down from more than 10% that it has been for the last 5 years. And their goal is to get that down to 3%, as I said. In addition to that, the real-world benefits of the plan are set to increase the average Senegalese worker's income by nearly 50% over the course of the next 5 years, which is awesome. A massive effort is being placed on promoting good behavior and conduct among politicians, and an even bigger emphasis is being placed on education. An effort is being placed to encourage industries such as agriculture and the technology sector. Future energy development is planned to be sustainable, with the increases in the share of solar and wind power. The government also says that it aims to achieve universal access to water and electricity, as well as a national health insurance system, and reform of the justice system, institutions, and land tenure. And look, I know, guys, I know that there's going to be a number of comments that are coming in here that are talking about how crazy all this sounds, and I get it. Here we have another African country's new administration making huge promises to its people. We've heard the story before in the neighborhood. But the thing is, this time it really seems to be different, at least so far. Could be wrong, but right now it seems to be on track. This time, the promises stand their greatest chance of actually being kept. And as the old saying goes, if you shoot for the moon and miss, at least you'll land among the stars. Now, these promises aren't being made as lip service, and if any government in Africa can be said to legitimately have the best interest of the people in their mind currently, then that title probably would go to Senegal. Time will, of course, show us just how much the absolute mad lad concept that is Vision 2050 will come to fruition, but you can guarantee that we'll keep you updated here on the progress the next time that something worth updating happens. I know that for those of you who regularly watch my content, I talk about a lot of disasters and stupid decisions and things in history. Heck, over the course of this one episode, we already talked about the failed megacity, which was the inspiration for this video in the first place. But things can still be done. And arguably, this is the way that you heal a lot of the problems that exist in places like Africa. Honesty and integrity with a heart for people. Promises made, promises kept, while keeping to realistic goals and actually trying to reduce debts instead of corruption and mass overspending. We can only hope that this manner of leadership proves to be internationally successful and that other states, if it is successful, may follow suit. Considering all the other things that we've been talking about on the African continent, it's pretty great to be able to see and give some good news for once, even if the good news comes at the cost of also presenting some very bad news that it also simultaneously happened. But either way, my friends, that is the end of today's story. Thank you all very much for watching. I appreciate you, and I'll see you here next time. Let me know in the comment section if there's anything else that you'd like to watch, and honestly, at some point in the future, when I'm leading my trips, I need to do one to an African country. I really do. For now, if you all want to travel with me, you should check out my trip to Thailand. I got several bookings on it here. There are still a couple spots left, so before it is that these spots run out, since it is the cheapest trip that I have ever launched, I recommend checking that down in the description. Join me on traveling the world and having adventures, my friends. I'll see you next time. Goodbye. And once again, my friends, this video has been sponsored by War Thunder. You can fight millions of players in PvE and PvP combat using real historical vehicles, and it is available for free on PC, Xbox, PlayStation, and mobile devices. But if you are a new player playing on PC or on console, or you have not played in the last 6 months, then you can get access to a massive bonus pack by clicking the links down in my description. Thank you once again, War Thunder, for sponsoring this video, and now back to the show.